Hey everybody, it's Mr. Winkle. This time I'm reporting from my kitchen, and the reason I'm reporting from my kitchen is we're talking about fungus. And mushrooms are probably some of the best known fungus. They're the ones that we eat commonly. And I'm just actually cooking some mushrooms up, just sauteing some mushrooms. These are called portobello mushrooms. They're a common kind that people eat. They're actually pretty big. Mushrooms, the mushroom part is actually called the fruiting body because most of what a fungus is actually in a tree or underground. So we only see this part when it's time for the fungus to reproduce. And we've got what's called the cap right here, and underneath that we've got gills. They're called gills because they're little slots, almost like the gills of a fish. And then we've got what's called the stalk. And all of this is made out of hyphae, which are those tiny little fibers, like little threads. And they're all bunched together in a mushroom, but underground or inside of a tree, they're all spread apart. And so what we see on the surface of the ground when we see a mushroom, there's probably many, many meters of hyphae that go underneath the ground. I'm just going to break the stalk off of this one right here, and we can get a close-up of what it looks like on the underside. And you can see all these little slots here. These are called the gills, and that's where the spores hang out. Those spores are the little reproductive cells, and those will actually fall out of the top of the mushroom cap here. And something that's kind of cool that you can do, it won't work right now because this mushroom isn't dry, but if you break off a mushroom cap like this, and you just put it on a piece of white paper and you let it sit for a couple days, what will happen is those little spores will fall out and onto the paper, and it'll actually make a print. And it'll leave a pattern of these gills on a piece of paper so you can see those spores. So this is what a mushroom would use to reproduce, to get those spores out. So it wants to get those spores up off the ground, and then the spores can fall out and they can be caught by the wind or get in the water or something like that. There are different kind of mushrooms called puffballs, which are a kind of club fungus, and they look like little balls like this. And instead of having a fruiting body that grows up, their spores are all inside this little pouch here, and when something hits it or taps it or it gets torn open, all those spores get released. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to squeeze this, and you'll probably be able to see the spores come out. It's going to almost look like smoke coming out here. So if you see that, all those little tiny microscopic spores, that's the stuff that looks like smoke. And so right now, if we're outside, all these spores would float around and would eventually become new fungi. So mushrooms are really cool because you can eat them. You can eat them raw. Some people are kind of grossed out by mushrooms because they think they smell funny, and I used to, but now I like them a lot more. And we can cut them up, and we can actually see those gills in there. And when we eat mushrooms, we're actually eating this whole cap part. We're actually eating all the gills too. And we can just put them in a pan like this, and we can just fry them up. And so I'm making some soup, and I'm just going to get these cooked up a little bit. I'm going to throw them in my pot of soup. It's going to have a lot of flavor because you can eat fungus. You want to be careful though when you eat fungus, because if you eat the wrong fungus, it'll kill you. So it's really important that if you go mushroom hunting that you have a book, or better yet, have an expert that knows what they're doing. So this is Mr. Winkle getting back to cooking, talking about fungus.